Hey everyone, Anthony Zuzolo here, broadcasting to you from a state-of-the-art studio and totally not a warehouse in Brooklyn. And today, my major complaint is I don't think we know what violence is anymore. Like, we think that doing a drone strike on an underdeveloped nation is not as bad as the existence of Elmer Fudd. I'm kidding, of course, but it is hard to deny that the meaning of violence is being obfuscated, whether intentionally or unintentionally. You do have these people today that say silence is violence, and the rationale is probably that you're just sitting by and letting people commit atrocities. But you also have people claiming that words are violence, and that if you don't say exactly what they want you to say, you basically like pushing old ladies down staircases. Like everything else today, violence has become something where, oh, if I do it, it's not violence. It's only violence if those garbage people, if they do it. If it happens to somebody I like, then, well, that's just the worst, most awful thing. You calling them fat is violent and bigoted and rooted in everything evil. But if I call somebody I don't like fat, well, they're just a big fat fatty, and oh well. This is, of course, an idiotic point of view, and of course I can't fix it, but hopefully if I talk about it, maybe we can have a better understanding of what's going on. This video is, of course, inspired by the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. When I saw the assassination attempt, the footage of it, I did want to get on the internet and express my feelings because it was a shocking thing. It was shocking to see an old man get shot at and duck, and, you have these feelings like, this is really messed up. Like, I don't like Trump myself, but, how did we get to this point where people are just... I mean, I knew that we were at that point already because I've seen people talk online, that people would just, if they saw something like that, they would still be like, yeah, fuck yeah, he deserves it. But, when you're actually confronted with it, it's just, you get the actual feelings as opposed to being numb to it by seeing it all the time. So yeah, I did want to express myself in the moment, but I did wait a little bit for emotions to sort of calm down. But either way, this is still an abomination. It's a travesty. It never should have happened. Even if you're a super hardcore liberal, this is something that you should look at as never should have happened. Especially from a humanitarian standpoint. I know that you're not going to get there, obviously. But just also from for your own wants and desires, now you kind of gave the guy, a pathway to the White House, I think. But you guys really screwed yourselves over. What was that kid that pulled the trigger even thinking, oh, I hate right-wing conspiracy theorists so much, they're the most evil thing on the planet. Oh, I know, I'll kill the president. Conspiracy theorists would never come out for a presidential assassination. That's probably who committed these acts. The perpetrator seems like a kid who works a gun as well as he works the fryer at Wendy's. Before we knew who the assailant was, my thought was, gee, Robert De Niro never retired from his hitman days. The evidence that we're pretty flippant towards violence is pretty common. Just look at the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial as an example. Now, I'm not saying Johnny Depp is some sort of angel, because if you listen to the recordings, he's talking to her in a way that I personally don't think is acceptable to talk to really anybody, especially your spouse. But she was clearly no angel, and it's okay if you didn't believe that she took a bottle and cut his finger off, or it's okay that if you don't believe that she had a little too much Taco Bell last night and she mistook his bed for the toilet. But the fact is, as soon as you heard the recording of her saying that she hit him, that's the point where you were supposed to go, okay, she's the bad guy here, or at least a bad guy. And not everybody did that. Some people were still defending her actions, and that's not right. And I think that speaks to why we don't consider violence a real thing, and we think of it as something that's kind of fictional, really. Now, I was joking about Robert De Niro, of course, but I actually do think he has a hand to play in all this. I think his rhetoric is what sort of sparks up this sort of sentiment among the public when we have public figures that go out of their way to not really rein in their emotions and that are okay with spreading this sort of talk. I've seen him on TV multiple times going, Donald Trump is a psychopath, he's a sociopath, he's a dictator, he's a crook. I mean, I'm not here to debate whether or not that stuff is true, really. It's just, sociopath That's a very specific term. A sociopath is somebody who has no regard for human life. Like, they can see somebody being tortured and just feel nothing. That's specifically what a sociopath is. And I have not seen any evidence that that medical term, I'm assuming it's a medical term, is applicable to Donald Trump. I do think he has bad qualities. He doesn't seem like a great person to me, but he's not a sociopath, and I don't think that's up for debate. And the people who label Trump a sociopath are usually on the side of the aisle that's very into mental health and addressing it and getting help for it. And if that's the case, you can't just throw out a term like sociopath, which is a serious thing. You can't just toss around terms like sociopath or even depression or anxiety, because then there's a whole swath of people that just don't take those issues seriously. So if anything, Robert De Niro does have a responsibility not to do that. And again, I do like Robert De Niro, I don't like Trump, but he fucked up in this instance. And whenever I see a celebrity ranting and raving about politics, I always think, like, why do you care? Why do you specifically care? Like, I get why somebody like me might go overboard with politics a little bit, because I can't afford to make toast. But you're a celebrity. You could buy a rickshaw and then approach somebody in a wheelchair and pay them to attach their wheelchair to it and carry it around to lot A to lot B or whatever the fuck. Aren't you like 80? I mean, can't you just ride it out for a couple of years instead of destroying your legacy by using that intense rhetoric? But no, I guess you don't want to do that for whatever reason. I guess you think that's the most important thing. I don't know why. I don't know why we have these celebrities like Robert De Niro using that intense rhetoric, or Kathy Griffin holding up a severed bloody head of the president like it's okay, and encouraging that sort of hatred and anger, or other celebrities just saying it's okay to punch a Nazi when our definition of a Nazi is, I don't know, somebody who thought Beyonce's last album was just alright. And then there was the Kyle Gass thing, which in that scenario I don't think we were nuanced enough, if I'm being honest. Personally, I've always hated cancel culture, and I think that should really be a last resort before we take action towards anybody. Let's be honest, this is another instance of us going overboard by acting emotionally, because lots of people online were saying that it was Jack Black who had said the awful thing that was said, and that's not true, and there was no apology, no attempt to correct. People just kind of went on their sort of way, and that's not right, but he basically made a joke that he shouldn't have made. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any consequences, but what I am saying is that I don't think we should tell ourselves that there's only one single way that it could have been interpreted. I myself resort to shock humor all the time, and I could totally see myself in a scenario where I say something that's, I think, is clearly being sarcastic, but then other people just interpreting me not being sarcastic. And while I do think it is possible that Kyle Gass does harbor that sort of hatred for Donald Trump and doesn't like him and sort of possibly a little bit meant what he said, I also think it could have been a thing where he told a joke and the joke was just like, in his head, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if I actually thought that violence was okay? Like you would maybe say in front of your friends. I could totally see myself assuming that, like, oh, everybody knows that I'm just kidding, and not expecting that a bunch of outside people are going to overhear me saying the awful thing, and then it just blows up into a whole big thing that I didn't mean, and being interpreted in a way that I didn't mean it to be interpreted. And I think that's also a possibility in the Kyle Gass situation as well. Make no mistake, Trump bears some responsibility for this situation as well, because he has encouraged that sort of violence a little bit, if we're being honest. He's used Twitter to tweet out images of him punching CNN, the CNN logo on somebody's face and punching it. I mean, can you honestly say that's not promoting violence? Or him saying stuff like, I have all the tough people, and if somebody disagrees with you, shoot him or punch him. I don't know exactly what he said, and I probably should if I'm preaching to you like the arrogant son of a bitch I am. The point is that he is a little bit culpable in all of this based on the things that he said, and if you're going to deny that anything he said can credibly be interpreted as violence, I'm going to have to call bullshit on that. Because it's not just Kathy Griffin and Robert De Niro and those celebrities, it's him too. point is that both sides of the political aisle do have their violent tendencies. On the right, you see things like those tiki torch rallies and the storming of the Capitol, and on the left, you see things like whenever they perceive injustices, they think it's okay to smash up a Starbucks. I remember what it was like 4 years ago in New York City, the day before the elections. I walked around, and in Manhattan, Brooklyn, you saw these people, these stores, boarding up the storefront windows because they knew that if the election was won by Trump and not by Biden, the people in New York were going to throw a fucking fit and they were going to start smashing shit up. But the stores didn't even have anything to do with it. Like, how was that going to solve the problem? Yeah, you fucking take that, Lululemon. And I don't think things were like this before, and maybe I'm just ignorant. I know there's things in our history, like sort of the Rodney King riots and stuff like that, but just to me, it just seems like we've just entered a whole new level of just not sympathy. I don't think it's debatable that this is a whole new era of violence. And that doesn't mean I think it's better or worse than any other time in our history. I just think that this era of violence is just something we've never seen before. I just think its palpability is saturating the air on a level that we haven't seen before. Again, emphasis, not saying it's better or worse, just saying it's different, because I know some people are going to be like, well, how can you say it's the most violent era of our time when there were so many wars in the past? There was always war, and now it's relatively peaceful. And it's true, we don't have to worry about war on a constant basis the way our forefathers did. Why is that? Well, because we have property now. You see, back when we had nothing, you could easily go out and think nothing of killing another man so that you could take his chicken parmesan and bring it home to feed your family. But then somewhere along the line we started to get things like lava lamps and coffee makers, and then we thought to ourselves, you know, if somebody were to blow all this shit up, it would be pretty hard to get all of it back. So in the parts of the world that do have property, we just pretty much stopped engaging in wars because we realized, hey, you know, it's going to take a pretty long time for us to put all the stuff back together. I mean, not us. More like the kids in the part of the world that don't have property. I mean, I can't wait another 6 whole months for them to put a brand new swimming pool in. What do you expect my kids to do? Use the smoking crater down by the cul-de-sac? So if you're saying there's less violence now than there used to be, well, you do have a good argument there. But the fact is that there's violence being expressed all the time because there's means to express it more than there used to be. It's everywhere. It's on the internet. It's in comedy. I mean, just look at the incident where Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. You had a scenario where one man violently struck a much smaller man, and then you had a whole bunch of people defending the perpetrator of the violence. All because somebody somewhere just tossed out the word ableism. And my question to anybody who is defending him is, why couldn't he have said the words, "keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth," before he committed the slap? Take that ableism argument and shove it up your ass, because he didn't say, "How dare you say that about my wife's condition?" He said, "Take my wife's name out of your fucking mouth." It's not an incident of somebody defending the crippled or the disabled. It's an incident of somebody being a toxic male. And that's why things are so fucked up now, because you have these people who use the word toxic masculinity and throw it around and say it's so bad, and they're the ones defending the guy for being a toxic male. Because it's not about the right thing, it's about pushing a narrative. And I don't mean to make light of alopecia, it's an illness, but it's not a disability. A disability is when you can't do something because of your condition. What can't you do because you don't have hair? Get into a fight on Jerry Springer because your wig will get ripped off? Oh, what's that? You lost your hair? Oh, well, I'll be sure to tell all the people in wheelchairs to share the parking spots from now on. We're living in a whole new era of violence. In the past, the violence was perpetrated by mostly the powerful people because of things like greed and ambition, probably a little bit of hatred. And in the modern era, it's perpetrated by everyday people because of things like words and feelings. And this whole thing all starts because of the apathetic people in our media. The people that say things time and time again, lie after lie, who don't care what those lies do to us. They'll share a piece of misinformation, and if somebody gets decapitated because of it, well, so what? Just look at how quickly we moved on from the Trump assassination. That's not normal. There could be several reasons for why that's not normal. Maybe we're so used to hearing about school shootings in this country that we just hear about violent incidents and just tune them out, but it was literally like after a week, just the Biden announced he was dropping out of the presidential race, and then like that became the dominant news item, and just this very clear instance of violence just forgotten. There's very little discussion of why it happened, almost no conversation at all about how we could do better and who's responsible and who, like, what figures are responsible and what we could do to prevent this again. Just, oh, new thing, shiny new thing, there we go. The media moves quick, man, and it's just, one, because they don't care, and I think also it's because just the quicker they move, the more they're shifting blame away from them. They know it's their fault, and they know if they stagnate, that's going to leave time for you to go, hey, wait a minute, didn't you kind of do blah, 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 blah? Yeah, well, I didn't do anything. Why do you think I did anything? Oh, hey, look, Jennifer Aniston's wearing something slutty. It's so sad. The media doesn't care. They don't care about trying to make anything better, making things better for you, for me. All they really care about, I don't even think they necessarily care about money. All they really care about is just winning their little thing. Sure, there's a horrible thing that we should be paying more attention to, but we got a game to play. So now's the part of the video where I give you homework, and what I'd like you to do this time is just, whenever you see violence, just call it out for what it is. Don't try to sweep it under the rug. Don't try to rebrand it as something, because that's something we do in this country. We just take whatever behavior we're guilty of and we brand it as good or bad. Just, you can see that, many examples of that right now. And also, if you're having violent feelings, just, I don't know, maybe just take a deep breath, count to 10, squeeze a stress ball. I'm not a very violent person, so I've never tried any of that stuff, but I guess it works for some people. So just basically the point is just, like, try to express yourself in another way. So yeah, sad topic today, and I don't wish to scare you, but I did want to just get my thoughts out about that. Maybe you're sad too, and you can just kind of look to me and we could all be sad together. Thanks for watching. Please leave a thoughtful and respectful comment down below. Smash that like button. Subscribe to my channel and have a great day, and thanks for tuning in.